Papillon Chaos Managed. Welcome to Couch Talk.
Yeah, today we're going to start talking about priorities.
Yeah, priorities as far as VA healthcare.
Well, yeah, and there's like a way of prioritizing where you fit in the whole VA healthcare system.
Yeah, it is a system. It is a VA healthcare system. But these are things that a lot of people just don't know about. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, because it affects whether or not you're going to have to shell out some of your old cold hard cash.
Oh, no, not cold hard cash.
Warm and gooey? Soft and mushy.
I don't know. But before we get into that, we do need to give our little disclaimer because we're not attorneys.
We're not. The judge said so.
Yeah. No, he didn't.
Okay.
He would, though, if we were in front of him.
That's true. We could represent ourselves, but nobody else.
Yeah.
We are not counseling anyone.
We're not. This is not any kind of a professional...
we are just military housewives of disabled veterans that have had to sift our way through this whole system. We're sharing that information.
We're showing others sift it out.
Exactly.
So other
maybe make it a little bit easier for somebody that's just starting their journey.
Most definitely. And have you ever wondered, why does one pay nothing and another one gets a bill in the mail?
Well, it does make you wonder, because it's, wait a minute, are we all part of the same system?
We are.
But there are little differences about it. So, you're in the same system, the same service, but it's completely different experiences.
Yeah, so today what we're going to do is we're going to break down the VA priority groups.
Mm-hmm. Give you a little bit about, what they are, how they work, and why they matter.
Okay, so what are these priority groups?
Well, basically what they are is it's the way that the VA decides to organize the veterans, and it serves a purpose for the VA.
Well, yeah, because it has to do with your access to healthcare.
Right? And about the cost responsibility, copay versus not having a copay at all.
Yeah, and your enrollment eligibility.
Yeah. So, not all veterans are placed in the exact same category.
Right.
And the category that you're in, that's what affects what you're going to pay and how much your access to care that you're going to get.
Yeah, most definitely. And there are 8 priority groups. Okay,
so the basic breakdown. Let's, keep it simple. We're using the KISS method here.
Yeah, keep it simple.
So the higher priority, like groups numbers 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be like, veterans with higher disability ratings.
Yeah, like 50 and above.
Right.
50% and above.
So the higher this is where they start the determination of where you belong. If you are like a former POW, you'll be in a higher priority group.
And as well as Purple Heart recipients.
Definitely. So usually this is going to mean that you're not going to have a copay for most care. I'm not going to say that it eliminates it 100%.
Correct.
But you also have top access priority.
Yes.
So
you're prioritized above others. And that's not saying they're neglecting anybody.
Right.
It's just the way that they prioritize. Then we have the middle priority group.
Yeah,
and that would be like 4 through 6.
Yeah, 4 to 6.
Yeah. They're the ones with lower disability ratings, so anybody below the 50%-ish is where that would fall in.
Definitely not minimalizing your situation, but...
No, it's not.
It's just...
It's how they group things, how they run the program.
The whole care system.
Yeah.
It's going to include people that they list as being catastrophically disabled.
Yes.
It's a really interesting way to phrase it.
Well, I guess certain things could be a catastrophic.
Well, more detrimental to your overall function. Definitely.
Somebody that needs a little bit extra care.
Right.
For certain situations.
Right.
And then there's also what they call service eras. or exposures that could put you into those middle groups.
Right. So there are some free care, especially service connected, that you have the same co-pays, and for non-service connected.
Yeah. So if it's service connected, you may not have a copay. If it's not service connected, you probably will have a copay. But that's not saying one way or the other that you will or you won't, because they have things.
They have their determination factors
that fits into there.
Let's spin the wheel and pull out a ball.
Bingo, G6. And then the last category would be your lower priority, which is the rest of the groups, the 7 and 8.
The 7 and 8. So not the 6 7s. The 7
and those are the ones little to no service connection.
Right. And your income based qualification.
Yes,
is involved.
That will fall in there.
Right. So, and basically that translates into being, your copay required and eligibility. It might depend on your income status.
Yeah, exactly. But priority groups, it's not about your worth. It's just about how the VA organizes their healthcare.
Yeah.
That's
how they make sense of it.
It's how they make sense. Let's talk a little bit about how priority groups affect cost.
Right, because as we already, we've alluded to that within how they break down and figure out what groups you're into. It translates into your expense out of pocket.
Yes.
So we're talking things that are impacted copays for your doctor visits, medication.
Yeah, medication costs.
Definitely. What if you need to go to a specialist?
What's covered, what's not.
And whether or not non-service connected care is going to be free or not.
Yeah, and it's amazing that all of this stuff gets lumped in there and they figure out how to do a system. But we can give you a little bit of an example. Like a higher rated veteran, there's often no copay at all.
Right, and then because let's look about the idea of your income. If you are a higher rated disability, the probability that you are earning is lessened greatly.
Yes, it is.
So this is where that kind of makes sense. So this, and which is part of the philosophy behind how they structure these things. So on the flip side of that, if you have a lower or no
rating,
there's no rating involved whatsoever, well, then there's a high probability that you might be paying for some of your services.
Yeah, and if anybody's actually sitting here wondering, going, what do you mean no rating? If you go back and look at the series that we did, we do talk about the ratings. You can actually have a 0 rating, but still be a service-connected veteran, which enables you to have care.
Exactly, which is really important to know, because most people, at least people that I have spoken with that are ex-military, they weren't even aware that that was a possibility. They thought they had to have some level of service-connected disability rating to actually be able to get health care.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily the case at all. So an important clarification here.
Yeah.
Even if you have copays, the VA healthcare, it's often still one of the most affordable.
Oh, definitely.
Other than, with the private care, if you start comparing private care to the VA healthcare, VA is more affordable.
Yeah. So now we've talked about the idea of the different tiers of ratings. So how are you actually assigned your rating?
Well, the VA looks at a handful of different things, obviously being your disability rating.
Right, and that was things we've discussed in previous videos of how the ratings go and the fact that their math doesn't math.
Yeah. Well, and then they're going to look at your service connected conditions.
Right.
So it's not necessarily just that you're service connected. They're also going to look at the conditions that you have.
Right. So it could be, and that goes to what the ratings are on the commissions. And of course, there's the income level.
Well, yeah.
You may still be an employed individual, so income does come into play.
Yeah, that's, and that's a
valid,
a good measure, because some may be, like you had pointed out before, some may be, totally disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, you're not going to have that income.
Right.
So, I mean, it's feasible.
It is
to me.
It is.
And then you're going to have your special eligibilities, and we talked about them, your POWs, your Purple Hearts.
Right.
That all comes into play.
And then one of the last things they're also going to consider in this grouping is going to be your service history.
Yeah.
And that is a very vast category in and of itself.
Yeah, you kind of wonder,
what all
how did they all? Yeah.
But it probably has to go down to dealing with what branch of the service you were in,
yes,
what years you were serving, what your specific task within the service
wartime,
was.
peacetime, what was the whole,
what was your job? Because everybody has a job to do. So, and where you were located, because people that are stateside aren't necessarily exposed to the same thing as somebody that might be in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So,
most definitely. So there's a lot of things that are in play.
Your trainings.
And, it's throw the Jell-O at the wall and see what...
Jell-O, spaghetti, whatever you happen to be cooking, just throw it at the wall.
They do have methodology based on all of those things to get you your assignment. But did you know that your assignment actually happens when you enroll in the VA healthcare? That it starts from the very beginning. They look at all this stuff and they assign you.
Well, and it can change over time too, because if you have other conditions that crop up as time goes by, which can happen,
it does a lot.
End up going from being a low tier priority and eventually work your way up to being top tier.
To be a higher tier, yeah.
I'm not quite sure this is necessarily the game you want to make it to the top of the mountain first. Not sure. But
yeah, I'm not quite certain of that either.
So the other part of it, when when it happens, is your financial situation can change,
and that makes a lot of sense too. Because if your rating changes because you've got other stuff cropping up, your ability to function may be going downhill. Your ability to make money might be going downhill. That it all plays into that.
It does.
So that's the how. Can your priority group change? And we just kind of talked about that.
We nudged our way into it. So the answer is a resounding
yes.
And people don't always realize that that's a possibility, because sometimes when you get into things, you just think, I'm locked in.
There I am.
This is all I'm a number 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be a number 2.
Well, no, isn't that isn't those, you want to be a 1 through 4 or 1 through 3. 1 through 3, because that's the high priority group.
I guess. Depends on how much you want to be exposed.
Well, it depends on how much you want to be a high priority.
I guess so. So things that can cause it to change, like if your disability rating increases.
Yeah, as it increases, you might go from a 30% rating to a 60% rating and get bumped up from a mid to a high.
Exactly. What about income changes?
Well, yeah, if things change with your income, that would, you're not making as much, that might actually change where you fall.
Finance really plays a part in so many things.
It's really interesting.
And also, something we had already thrown out there, you develop new service-connected conditions.
Yeah. This
can change your priority rating as well.
Yeah. And your priority rating, your priority group, it's not always permanent.
No.
It can shift.
It can shift, it can change, because your situation can shift and change.
And that's actually valuable.
It is. Okay, so we often mention the misconceptions that people have, especially in reference to some of the VA things.
They do. There's misunderstandings about how things work.
Yeah, Yeah, and
They are.
in relation to this topic, there's 6 things that seem to come up the most that are being misunderstood.
No, I'm thinking there's 4.
You think there's 4?
I think there's 4.
Okay. Maybe there's only 4 then.
There's 4.
Okay. We'll just go with 4.
Number 1, all veterans get free health care.
No.
That's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Because we just talked about the fact there's copays for some.
There is copays for different things for different
priority.
things. It is. It's all based on priority.
I see that.
It is.
Okay. So how about if I have a rating, everything is going to be covered?
No. Only service connected only service connected care is always covered. Okay. So if you have non-service connected something, that doesn't mean that they're not going to help you. It's just that you may, and again, priority groups have a copay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where things get a little bit wonky and people
think that
fall into cracks.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out.
I don't like falling in cracks.
Nobody likes cracks.
Well, so if that's the case, what about VA healthcare? That's just not worth it, is it?
Well, and we touched on this in the last segment when we were talking. Actually, VA healthcare is still often more affordable than private care options.
All right.
I mean, even if you have to pay a copay, when you're looking at the copays that are paid for private care versus
because you get into the 80/20s and all the percentage payouts, the caps,
the high deductibles, and
deductibles are
when
really.
you start looking at all of that, the VA healthcare system really is a great
start adding up those
affordable option. And you know what? It's also a benefit that you earned. Well, as a veteran, you earned it. And this is
the hard thing that a lot of people, I don't know that we can say those enough times, the fact that you earned it. You signed the dotted line giving control over your person to the federal government. You earned every benefit.
Yeah, you've earned every benefit that's offered to you. So please, take what's been given. Take what's been given. And the last misconception is, I don't qualify, so I shouldn't apply.
Well, and many veterans, they qualify, and you don't even realize it.
And that's true, but that goes back to what we were just saying. These are benefits that were given to you when you first signed on that dotted line. This was part of your contract, and you need to collect.
And it's also the thought, too, is the fact that, well, I don't have a rated disability.
Well, you can be a 0 rated.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we told you about all these fantastic priority groups, and you're asking yourself, how do I apply for VA healthcare? How do I get this stuff? How do I get what I get what I signed up for?
Well, there are 3 different ways to really, you can apply. Go online. Through the VA website, va.gov.
va.gov, most definitely.
But I'm going to give you fair warning. There is a ton of information on that website.
There is.
And it's really easy to get lost. So
know what you're looking for when you go in. Use the little question box.
Yeah, the search box.
That you can
make sure that you're putting in the key word that you're trying to hone in on. Mm-hmm. You'll get better information returned.
Yeah.
Okay, you can also call them.
Yep, give them a buzz on the phone. Hello there. How do I sign up?
I'm going to tell you, sometimes getting a hold of the VA can be trying because they are very, very busy.
Yes, they are.
I don't think there are enough hands to handle all the calls that they get. They're short-handed.
Yeah, there's got to be a
They should take some of the IRS agents and move them into
taking
phone
calls. If you're paying them to be an agent, you might as well put them someplace they can be useful.
Well, exactly. And another way to do it, too, is if you could, and this is more for somebody, in my personal opinion, that really wants the hands-on, more walk you through the whole process. Go to one of the VA locations.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely, because they'll help you out there.
You've got a human body in front of you that'll
point you in a direction. What do I need to do?
Yeah, you're a lot less easy to be. Thank you. Have a nice day.
But what we are going to tell you is you do need just a few basic things when you go to sign up. So these are things that you just need to dig out and have handy. One of them is your basic service info, and you're going to get all of that off your DD-214.
And mind you, if you do not have copies of that in your home that you've created a file or something, you can get the information through the VA.
Yeah.
They can, they'll say, oh, you need to fill out a form and submit it, but you can request this information from them and they'll supply all the documentation because it's your records.
Yeah, you're going to need your financial info, and that's for some groups. So just have it handy in case they ask. And then obviously your medical information, you want that to be available because the more stuff that they can put in on you within their system, the better off you're going to be.
And again, though the VA has access to your records from where your service time was, you can also request to get those documents in your hot little hands so that you've got all the documentation to support your claim. Of course, any medical that you've sought outside after service is going to be applicable as well. You want all that information.
Yeah, most definitely. So if you're unsure, apply anyway.
Yes.
The VA is going to determine your eligibility.
They will. All right, so what does this even matter?
Yeah.
I mean,
at this point, we're asking why. Why?
So understanding your priority group, it helps you avoid surprises because not everybody likes to be surprised.
Not all surprises are good.
Yeah, especially when it comes to cost.
Well, yeah, when it starts hitting your wallet, it's nice to have
mechanic and
a little bit of
having them look at your engine and come out and tell you what it's going to cost to fix.
Most definitely. Well, it also helps you to make better decisions about your healthcare options.
Definitely. And let's see. It's going to tie into the bigger picture. Think
amazingly so. When you think about it, amazingly so, how much it all ties together.
It's going to affect financial planning because if you know that you have a coverage that's going to help offset costs, this affects your finances.
Yeah,
how
and
you
know what
budget.
your co-pays are going to be. That really does. It really does help with financial planning.
It's going to also affect long-term care. Because if you're dealing with something that is an ongoing or chronic issues, things like that,
you can know what your options are going to be through the VA.
Exactly.
And that all boils down to stability. That gives you stability, and that's kind of important.
Well, it is, because a lot of individuals, they deal with anxiety to begin with. And when you've got a nice solid foundation and you have that stability, it eliminates the anxiety attached with the unknown portions.
Well, it gives you that peace of mind. It gives you that peace of mind. So, question, do you know what priority group you're in? We would love to hear. If you know, drop down in the comments. And while you're there, like, share.
Subscribe, do everything.
Subscribe.
Hit buttons, whatever it takes.
And we do know that the VA system can feel a little complicated.
Yeah, a little bit, but take a deep breath and chew it. And like they used to say, a friend of mine used to always say that I worked with, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Because sometimes that's what you have to do. You do what you can do, and then you have to walk away from it because sometimes it does get a little bit stressful.
Well, it's just a matter of understanding how they're structured.
Definitely. But it becomes a lot easier to navigate as you go through it because you become familiarized with how their system's set up.
That's true. So coffee's on.
Chaos managed.
That's Couch Talk.